Hey guys, today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a dope stencil. So, what is a stencil might be the first question you ask yourself. Well, a stencil is a tool used to transfer an image onto an object. It's usually a thick material that is cut into an image and then using paint or whatever you are using to transfer that image, you then place it on the object and then transfer it on. What are they for? Well, stencils have been used since prehistoric times, as not shown right here. They were invented in China. Paper stencils were invented in China in 105 AD. And they're used for transferring objects onto like cloth so that they could have designs. And then after that, stencils spread into Europe and they're used for mass production. And in the New World, mid-20th century, stencils were widely used for interior design. And today, stencils are used for many things thanks to technology. Like we have vinyl, as you can see here, that's used for like creating street lines, even up to like decals on cars. So there are many benefits to using a stencil, versatility being the main one. Since like modern technology has sort of advanced with stencil making and like you can now use vinyl and stuff, you can use stencils for just about anything to put an image onto it. The second thing being the fact that they're reusable. As long as a stencil stays intact and like it doesn't get damaged in the process of applying that image, you could reuse them as many times as you like. And the third thing being, it gives you room to work. Like, instead of just painting directly, you can sort of like work with what the image is before you get the final product out of it. Like, if you cut your image and you decide that's not how you want it to look, you can sort of change that a little bit. And these three things are why they're used for mass production in Europe, because it's just really easy to use. That being said, there are some limits. The main limit to stenciling is that it only provides one layer of artwork. So if you want to have an image that has like a background or something, you could do that. But that would have to be a separate stencil, which is a little bit difficult trying to balance two stencils together. The second thing being, once you cut something out, you can't really undo that. So if you make a cut too big, you sort of have to make another stencil. And then the third thing being is you can only use negative space when you're making a stencil because it's just an image cut out. So the first step to creating a stencil is choosing a stencil. For today, I decided I'm going to be stenciling onto a pillowcase. So in the spirit of dreaming, I decided to make a stencil about my dream car, Ford Fiesta. And when you're choosing what stencil you're going to want to make, it's important to keep in mind what you're working with. So for me, I am working with a pillowcase, so I had fabric paint that I was going to use. And that's just important to keep in mind because depending on what you're working with, you may need to use different objects, so just research that before you go head first into stenciling. Alright, so when you're designing your stencil, there's many ways to do this. Like you could use computer programs such as Photoshop or Stencilizer, which is a free browser way to make a stencil. Or like my stencil was a simple design, so I just drew it by hand. And like I said earlier, stencils only work with negative space. So if you are designing something with something in the center, like a circle or a 0 or an O, depending on what you want this to be, you're gonna need to like add bars so that the middle part is there, because if you were to just cut straight through it, it would just be a filled in circle. So it's important to keep negative space in mind when you're designing your stencil. Always add bars if you have something in the center. The third step to creating a stencil is cutting your stencil out. So when you're cutting your stencil out, you just want to follow the outside line of the stencil you had already designed previously. And keep in mind when you're doing this that you have to add bars if there's something in the center, because if you don't, it'll fall out and you'll just have a stencil that sucks, and you don't want that. And so you just follow it. I used an X-Acto knife. Just follow the outside of your design, and then once you have it all cut out, punch it out carefully so that you don't bend your stencil, because that could skew the image a little bit. And then once you do that, your stencil is cut out, and after that you just have to apply it. So when you're applying your stencil, make sure your stencil is flush on this object. So this is my pillowcase right here. This is my stencil. It's flat on the object. And you're going to want to cover the surrounding area of the stencil. That's mostly for if you're spraying something. For this example, I'm just going to be using a paintbrush, so I don't really have to worry about that too much. But you want to be able to cover the surrounding area as to not get that covered with paint. And then you're going to want to apply a thin layer of paint. So I'm going to do that now. And I'm just trying to make sure this is as thin as possible so that none of the paint leaks past the stencil, because that could skew the image a little bit. And just remember, there's no such thing as mistakes, only happy accidents. If you guys want to get closer, you can. Please, please, come up, view this. As you can see, I added bars so that the centers don't get cut out. I like Ford Fiestas because they're American made and they're fuel efficient. And they have Fiesta in them. Alright, so once that's all done, you're just gonna want to make sure it's all spread evenly out. There's some white spots right there, right there too. And just make sure it's spread out as evenly as possible. And then bada bing, bada boom, we have a Ford Fiesta pillowcase. Our stencil that we used, all cut out, and I'll show this to you guys. And yeah, that's how you make a dope stencil. And then here is our crowd enjoying this lovely artwork. And bada bing, bada boom. Yeah, money. Let's see. Oh yeah,